And with Marc Bolan in 1974,
Yeah.
because you had a bit, well, a dip. You vanished a bit at the end of the year,
Well,
purposely, no doubt.
Yeah, very intentionally. I only realised that the year before I put 6 singles out, in fact, the year before. I didn't realise that I'd only put 2 singles out this year. And 1 album. You know, I'd forgotten because we were touring all around the world and doing all that, and I spent so long on the new album that I'd forgotten all about it. But I also didn't want to be that involved in... I won't say glam rock, 'cause it's the wrong word, that the feeling towards over, in my opinion, over Marlene Dietriching the act, or over painting yourself, or becoming a circus clown, or pretending to be Judy Garland or something, which I don't ever see rock and roll as. Now, you know, like, which I think Rod Stewart's handled very well, in as far as it's very nice to wear what it was a couple of years ago, silk jackets, glittery jackets, whatever. The only person who does it really well, I think, is Gary Glitter. You know, because Gary's an angel, and he carries it well, and he knows what he's doing with it. And he doesn't use it. The records are still the singles, whether one likes them or not, which I happen to very much. I think they're good rock and roll records. It works for him in that way. But I don't like the idea, which happens in rock and roll, the idea of people actually using, you know, a current trend to promote any song that happens to be around. And they promote the group on the level of, so makeup's in with all makeup, and wear Flash Gordon jackets because it happens to look funky, and the kids will think we're really with it, man. And sell the same song they would have sold as being Beef Eaters or wherever they were going to be, or 10 years ago being Johnny Kidd and the Pirates, who were great. But I mean, that was, you know, that was his bag, and not everyone went around being Johnny Kidd and the Pirates. You know? So I think that side of it, I mean, I didn't want to get involved in that because I was kind of lumbered with, just because I wore glitter under my eyes a couple of times, I was lumbered with being the person that did all that, you know, along with a lot of other people. I never did anyway, and I had no intention of doing that, even though I like showmanship. There's a big definition right between the two, I think, anyway. I think one should always wear what you want to wear and be what you want to be. I'm not saying I'm not going to go on stage in a bright lemon suit with an ostrich on my head. I might quite do that, I don't know. But I mean, the point is, I also might go out in a denim suit. I don't want to be stuck in any kind of hole with what I should do.
Do you think it all went too far? I mean, what with Bowie, and you said a circus clown, Leo Sayer, new singer, no doubt very talented, but there he is on the front of a music paper.
Yeah, I saw that. See, I mean, with David, it's very different, because David, in fact, even at the t.rex days, used to do mime. As like, I used to give him a 509, we're only getting about a tenner, mind you, so I used to give him about a 509, and he'd come out and do a mime act. And he actually used to wear makeup like that then. So he has every right to do that, I think. Whether his direction is right or wrong is none of my business, you know, but he certainly has the credibility and the histrionics to be able to do that. With Leo Sayer, I know nothing about him, but the record doesn't warrant that kind of visual to me at all. But it's his business. But I mean, I found that picture very boring. Looked like Joe Braith, whatever his name is, and 25 out of 1,000 people that I've seen in New York drag houses. Yeah. But not as good. You know, to be bold, I mean, sorry, dear. Sorry, Leo. But I like the record, but I can't see what that's got to do with it. With David, it was a very heavy part of what he was into. He nicked a lot from me, obviously, and in the early days we used to nick from each other. So there's nothing wrong with that, we all do. I mean, that's rock and roll, but it was very valid with David, I think, as with Gary and those people. And at the beginning with Roy Wood, I'm not so sure anymore about that. I think Roy doesn't need all that now, personally. But I think at the beginning he did it very well, you know. Now I have my doubts about that.
So you did disappear almost without noticing it yourself.
Well, no,
what were you doing?
It was arranged that I would get out the papers for fear of being totally labelled alongside David Cassidy and Dolly Osborne, which is not what I'm into, and I never was. As you know, if anyone knows anything about my history, I started out as an underground act, and then we became teeny idols, or not teenage idols. Because we never, even though we had screamers, they were never like 4-year-olds or anything. You know, there were some pretty funky 4-year-olds used to come along. But anyway, so, and then I got into the singles thing, which at the time was relevant for me because I always felt not enough people put singles out. Like there's always too long between a Dylan single, and there always was between a Who single, a Stone single, a Beat. You know, there's always about a year in between. And in between, any old crap would get in, you know, like, nothing wrong with Grandad, but I didn't really want to sort of Ernie the Milkman or whatever. But I'm a rock and roller, right? And I in my head, I'm sure with you, I don't go home and play that sort of stuff. You know, I'd much rather see
whoever it be, a James Taylor or a Gary Glitter even, or anyone at the top of the charts, rather than something that's alien to what I think rock and roll is about, our side of the business, right? Which has nothing to do with making money as far as I'm concerned. It's expression, right? So I kind of feel, for me, I started putting records out, like Get It On and all those things, because no one was putting singles out. And towards the end of, I suppose, mid-'73, I began to think that there was not much point in me continuing to try to get to number one all the time, you know, which I did very easily then, and I could easily do now. I mean, a lot of people said that Truck On was probably my worst single, and I agree with them. And it was very much an intentional thing. The reason that didn't get like to a number one record, there's a lot of records like Lennon's and McCartney's, all this, the problem with plastic, and everyone's had a lot of problems with records, which is very unfortunate. But I will certainly agree it was not my best kind of single. But that was a planned thing, and as far as the new things I've got are so incredible that I wanted something not too good to have them to be compared against. It's a sneaky maneuver, but I think you'll find it'll work. And also, I couldn't, you know, I wanted someone, I was so pleased that Slade had that Christmas record out, because it was so nice to have someone that I could relate to having the Christmas record, you know, if you want.
The other thing is your relationship with quite a lot of stars, people like Ringo and these people.
Ringo? Yeah. Are you getting personal, are you? No, Ringo's a great mate of mine, you see, and I was, you know, not being, what's the word for it? I have a word which I won't say. Star, what do you call it?
Yeah.
Right, or a star groupie, if you want to put it more blatantly. I like to meet people and talk with them about music. You know, I like to meet any people. I'll talk, you know, I'm cheap. I'll talk to anyone, basically, as long as I like them. And I've got to know Ringo, and we got very close, and we're close friends, as I am with Harry Nilsson, whoever, Elton, no, long time. Even David Bowie, believe it or not, and Keith Moon, people, everyone that we all know, really. And I just like to, you know, talk with people. You'd be surprised how little one talks about music, which I find very nice. That's part of the thing, just nice to hang out with people. If they're interesting. And there's a lot of very, as you know, a lot of very interesting people in pop music that people don't really realise that they're that interesting. You know, and if you're with Harry, you always end up talking about Buckminster Fuller or something. You know, you get into, with Ringo, it's movies we talk about, or, you know, it's just Elton always, if I go to his house, he just plays me every new soul record ever made, you know, which is lovely. So it's just, but it's never about yourselves or what you're doing, or, you know, which people would probably find surprising, you know.
Also, you work with them, don't you? And you used Howard Cale and Mark Volman yourself, the ex-Purple sort of.
Yeah, many times. That was because, I mean, I've known them for a long time, since '68 or something. And at one time they were out of work, and they were in England, and I used them on Hot Love, in fact, then Get It On and a couple of things. And then they got in their mothers, so they were cool. But they're just very good singers. Incredibly good. So I consider you should always use the best people around. In fact, on the single, Teenage Dream single, I did try to get Elton, because he was in America at the time when I recorded that. But instead I used a guy called Lonnie Johnson, who works in War, a group called War, he plays with that. And he was just around, you know, in the studio, and we got talking, and he said, could he play? And he's a great piano player. But that's how it happens, you know.
You've had sort of staying power. I think you're about to set out in your third career, because after Tyrannosaurus Rex, which must have been the disc jockey's dream to pronounce it.
Well, we never got played anyway, didn't we?
Well, John Peel used to play. But then you changed purposely, became electric and very successful. Now you're changing again, and I suppose we'll see that with a new tour, which starts a week on Monday.
Yeah. But what I've done really is I've reverted back, grown back into expansion, which was with Tyrannosaurus Rex was only two people, and then I got into the original T.rex thing. And what I'm doing now is I've double-headed the tour. It's Marc Bolan and T.rex as Zinc Alloy and the Hidden Riders of Tomorrow, which in fact is the title of the new album. Also, the album's called A Cream Cage in August, so you can work that out. But basically, the tour starts, I think, Monday week 21st. I think we start in Newcastle. And we're doing 5 cities, which I'm trying to remember. It's Birmingham, Manchester, Glasgow, and Liverpool, I guess. But I'm doing it because I want to work, and it has been 2 years since I've played really out of town. And I'm using 2 drummers, 2 sax players, and the chicks, 2 black chicks, which I use in the records, and the rest of the band. And possibly whoever else turns up. It's not as quite as loose as that, but I'm trying to, I've expanded the whole sound incredibly. And we have an amazing light show. The guy who used to do the Pink Floyd called Arthur Max. He's fantastic. And I've already spent so much money on the tour that I can't possibly make any. So I don't want to hear any of this capitalistic stuff. I mean, because I think I'm about 10 grand out of pocket now. And that's assuming we can get power to play. I mean, but I think we're covered on that. But it will be very different in many ways, and as far as we're much better now than we were before. I mean, one tends to get better very quickly in this business, but it will be, I think, a very good show. I'm in the midst of rehearsing it, as I said. I'm just excited about playing in England. It's been so long. So I remember going, I haven't been up the M1 for years. Stopped the old Blue Boar and all that stuff on the air groove. I think we're going by plane now, so it might be hard.
So it's a bigger sound, which I've heard on the single, which you had strings on and everything.
Yeah.
Grand piano tinkling.
Yeah, we're using a Mellotron and many things. I mean, it'll sound the same on the stage, and we've got 18,000 watts of equipment, and it'll be noisy, Michael, very noisy. But it's not going to be like an intellectual thing necessarily. We'll do all the hits and do all that, because that's my heritage, but we'll also do a lot of new things. It's funky, man. Teenage funk. Yeah. It's very different now, from what I have done in many ways. But it's what I want to do, which is much more important to me now. This is my 4th year as your superstar thing, and I enjoy it. But I've always changed in accordance with my head. And the new album in particular, I'm very, very proud of. It's taken me a year to do and finish. I did that with Tony Visconti, we did it between us. And I think you'll find, you're going to play a track later, I think you'll find it'll change a lot of heads around about how adequate or inadequate I'm supposed to be as a musician. But I've reverted to using poetry much more heavily than I did before in songs. A lot of it's very erotic, actually, and very, what would be called intergalactically psychedelic, I think you'd call it. Rude. Rude is the word I was looking for. And I'm sure they'll find lots of drug orientations in it and all these sort of things. Which they're welcome to find if they want. But overall, it's for me, a very pleasing piece of work.
How do you view the rock scene today? I mean, it's all aging. None of us get younger.
Yeah, I don't know. See, I'm only 16, so it's very hard for me to say. I'm much more interested in American music at the moment. Spending most of my time in America, as I have been recently. Into a lot of black American music. The English rock scene, I don't know. I think it's going through a change. A new year always brings a change. It's exciting for me because I've been slightly bagged with starting out at the beginning super hot and, as you said before, cooling slightly. When I know what I've got, my next phase is equally as hot, if not more so. And I know for a fact there's a couple of other people who I won't mention who are of the same status that have already done this as well. I think the hardness is going to come for the people that have only had 1 or 2 hits and are not really ready for any kind of change. They're still built on 73's ideals, whereas I'm much more interested in 75 already, I don't know, there's a lot of good, catchy pop tunes, right, that people are trying to hang a lot more credence on than they in fact deserve, Again, coming up, like people like Roy Wood, for instance, have been writing great songs since 65, I suppose, the Move things. So he deserves everything that he's into, or Jeff Lynne, these kind of people. Slade certainly have worked for what they've gotten, I hope the same can be said about myself, or, things slow and speed up, but generally I think there's a lot of crap in the charts, personally.
On your own career, did you enjoy the sort of Tyrannosaurus Rex period more than the teenage adulation?
Much less. I enjoy it much less. I always wanted to be a teenage idol. I think every person wants to be. It's lovely to be worshipped and all that, as long as it's real. I've still never worked on an image in any way particularly, which is why I'm slightly rebelling against the old one, I suppose, being stuck with one. I've never had management of any sort behind me, powerful, like, you're talking about with people. I've never been created, which is probably why I get so much abuse and supposed pitfalls, and then great adulation, then down. I mean, same thing has happened to Dylan. You trace his career, people talking about him being totally finished, and yet he just sold 2.5 million tickets in about 4 hours, and they reckon they could have sold 50 million. You know, so for a man that's finished, I think that's quite sweet, really. God willing, being a nice Yiddish boy. The same can be said about me in about 10 years' time. I ain't going nowhere. You know what I mean? I'm going to be around whether people like it or not. But one always wants to be liked, right? So it was kind of cute that the teenage thing was nice, but I did gear away from it. I came out of my house, there's about 100 little girls out there. I love them, man. They say nice things to you, give you nice little presents. You know, one bought me a bottle of vodka, which I'm in fact drinking a little bit now. One bought me a chicken. You ready for it? I mean, which is very sweet. You know, we got about 10,000 Christmas presents. It's lovely. I wouldn't down that at all. I think that's the essence of rock and roll.
On the other hand, the sort of serious person within you who wrote poetry and things like that,
he's still there. He hasn't gone
he's still there, but
yeah.
on the other hand, he must want to, at some point, have his work treated seriously, or at least...
Well, no. You see, I believe I want to. To me, seriousness is. Dali said this recently. Seriousness is you know, I'm a pop media person. I want to reach as many people as possible. That to me is serious. There's nothing worse than doing what you consider a great work of art, or one considers a great work of art, and only have 4 people see it. It's no good being a great painter and never showing them to anyone but your mother. If you really listen to the words of, say, Tanks, for instance, there's some great poems on that album. If people don't choose to see them and see them as catchy rock and roll hit songs, that's their pleasure. If anyone's got ears and have got eyes to actually look at the words, they're going to feel the emotion that I put into them. If they don't, I can't force them to. The thing about the Teenage Dream single is it's obviously more wordy, okay, wordy, and will obviously be considered slightly more intellectual, but it's not at all. It's just a wordier song. There's a song called Left Hand Luke off Tanks, which is it's about a man I met in New Orleans who has no legs. He used to play guitar on the streets, you know. And it's a very sad song, and if you actually read the words, it's one line is, "Call me taxi, mama, and I take you for a ride," which to me is a great line of poetry. Now, if someone else doesn't think so. The thing about, well, that's probably why I called the new album Zinc, or even the tour, the Zinc Alloy and the Hidden Riders of Tomorrow. It's just kind of a send-up on what you've just asked me, in as far as taking yourself, you can see you can be far too serious with your own thing. I mean, I believe everything I do is a work of art, you see. I believe that every human being is a work of art, you know. I mean, my background, I was expelled when I was 14, I had no education as such. Yeah, I'm still England's best-selling poet, right? That to me is funny, you see.
I think John Betjeman might challenge you there.
Well, I've still sold more books. Far more. You know, as a fact. And never, not to people that buy poetry, though. That's where they go, oh, yes, you know. But, you know, talking about books, you know, I was talking with Roger McGough and Brian Patton about those things. And for them, a big selling book is about 5,000-6,000, which is enormous for a poetry book. Mine's done 150,000. You know? See, but not to people that buy poetry. And theirs is equally as valid as mine, and mine is theirs, and they agree. It's just that I was never reviewed in any literary paper. I don't want to be in their papers then. You know, I don't. I'd rather be in Mirabelle. You know, or Marvel Comics. You understand? I mean, it's like, because the people that read those things wouldn't really want to know about me. I'm something that their daughters stick on the wall, and something to be giggled at, which is a great defense to hide behind. Because I can see where they're coming from, but they can't see where I'm coming from. You know?
Do you have heroes? I mean, you're a youth hero. Do you have heroes yourself?
I have done many times, yeah, in various fields. I'm very into, as a writer, Ray Bradbury, I think he's very good. He inspires me very much. I still respect Bob Dylan a lot. On a filmmaking level, I like Roman Polanski or Fellini. I want to see a movie called The Golden Voyage of Sinbad, which has a man called Ray Harryhausen who does animation, makes all those monsters, you know. And I think he's amazing. I mean, he would be a hero to me. I mean, I'd still like to talk to him. But when I see his work, I have more respectful images, if you want, or names that I can tag respect onto, more than the heroes. I've never been a hero worshipper. You know, I've got James Dean on the wall up there, you know, but I mean, I put him on there because I just think he's very relative and valid. So sometimes when I feel looked down, I can look up at James Dean, you know.
Also looks like Marc Bolan.
Yes, now Ringo makes those. They're part of his other side of the business, his furnishing thing. He's a guy called Robin. And he did that and put it up there. But that to remind me what not to be. I've also got a lady sitting up there painting in black suspenders, which is something else. I've also got a silver disc. I've got Cole Porter records on the wall. We're describing the furniture. I've got a rocking horse, a rattan chair, and nothing else. Sadly.
On to the album,
Yeah.
which we're going to play a track.
I'll pick an exciting one, which relates to the zinc alloy thing. It's a song called Venus Loon. And I recorded it in Electric Ladyland in New York, Hendrix's old studio. And it was in fact going to be a single instead of truck on. And I decided not to because I thought it was far too 74 to be 73. Dig? So we'll play that one because it's a nice up. It's definitely up thing. And we'll probably do it on the tour. But it's the beginning of the next phase. It's not the heaviest lyrically or the most intense. But I think if we're going out the show, no one shouldn't do that. You can play those later. There's a couple. There's one called The Leopards featuring Gardenia and the Mighty Slug. There's also one called Painless Persuasion versus Meadhawk Immaculate. So it's all there, babe. You don't worry about it.
But right now it's
Venus Loon.
The irrepressible and outspoken Marc Bolan bouncing back into 1974. Do his poems really outsell those of Sir John Betjeman? Well, anyway, that track was the first ever play from his soon-to-be released album Zinc Alloy and the Hidden Riders of Tomorrow, and the track Venus Loon.